Marriage can feel like a blessing or a curse. Have you stopped recently just to think about the health of your marriage? I believe that marriage was designed to be a blessing, and if we give it the attention and intention that it calls for, then it can bring so much joy. My husband, Ryan, who I think is a pretty cool dude, is joining me to talk about 8 tips for a healthy marriage. We also talk about how marriage can affect our physical health, and we saved the most fun tip for last. I wonder if you can guess what that will be. Welcome to the Daily Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Melisha Meredith. I've led my family on a transformative health journey for over a decade, and now I help other families do the same. So this is a place where you can learn about healthy living and take the next step in your wellness journey. Hey everyone, I have my husband with me today, Ryan.
Hey everybody.
I love having him on and chatting about things that are important to us. And we were chatting the other day about marriage and how important marriage is and how important having a healthy marriage is, because it affects so many other areas and aspects of your life. Like if you are having a really hard time in your marriage is struggling, then you're going to be under a lot of stress, and that's going to impact your work. That's going to impact your physical health, because stress impacts our physical health. It's going to impact your ability to parent well. Really, all the things in your life can either get better or worse depending on how well your marriage is doing.
And before we get into all that we wanted to share, we want to make it clear that we are not saying that we have a perfect marriage or that we're doing it perfectly or that there's not other ways to do it well. So we realize that we've got some pretty, big things to learn and areas to grow in, just like probably everybody else is. But we think we're pretty happy, right? We've got a good thing going on that's a blessing to our family and to ourselves. And so we wanted to share some things that are working well for us.
Yeah, it feels like we're in a healthy place. We've been really fortunate to have a lot of people speak into us truths and helpful things in marriage that we've applied, and it's brought us to a good place. And so we want to see other people experience what we have in the blessing of marriage. And so we have 8 different helpful things to talk about. Are you ready to get going?
Let's do it.
Okay.
So the first one that I want to talk about is focusing on strengths and not weaknesses. So everyone has weaknesses, and as you're around your partner for any period of time, especially a long period of time, the weaknesses are going to become more and more obvious because you're going to get to know them. They're going to feel safe around you, and you're just going to see them. But it's not what you should focus on, because as you focus on the things that are annoying or things that areas where that partner is weaker, you lose track of the reasons that you were attracted to them in the first place.
This reminds me of a book I was reading recently. It's called Love and War. It is a marriage book. It's by John and Stacy Eldridge. I'll link it in the show notes for you guys. But he talks about this aspect of really choosing what you focus on in your spouse. And he calls all the little annoyances or weaknesses foxes. And so he goes through all these different foxes that can be in your marriage, whether it's, chewing too loud or never putting your laundry in the laundry basket, small things like that to bigger things. He talks about just having the ability to let it go. Don't dwell on it. Don't focus on it. Like, you can do that all day and drive yourself nuts and drive your partner nuts, or you can choose to focus on their strengths.
Yeah. I think, and sometimes it feels like, and this is not true, I'm just like putting myself in that mindset, right? Whenever I don't put my clothes away consistently, you may be tempted to feel like I'm just doing that to spite you, right?
Right.
I'm doing that because I don't care, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. So we'll talk about this a little bit later when we talk about respect, but just assuming the best of someone has to do with this topic as well, I think.
Yeah, totally. And that's not why I leave my socks on the ground.
Yeah.
Because I don't love you.
You're not trying to just drive me nuts.
No, totally not.
I think if you are able to focus on your husband or wife's strengths, then you're going to enjoy each other a lot more as well. It's just going to be a better life.
Yep, 100%. One thing I like about you, Melisha?
What?
Is that you're always fun. You always try to be fun. That's something that I'm not super great at, but you're really good at that.
Yeah. And you have a lot of strengths that I don't have. That's kind of nice in a marriage when I kind of need something that I'm not good at and I have you to lean on and depend on your strengths. I need critical thinking skills sometimes or just need to process through a decision and you're able to ask good questions. And so that's a good strength of yours.
Yeah, and that's how most marriages come together, is you really are attracted to people who have different personality traits or different strengths than you, and I think that's on purpose, right? Because you come together to make a stronger team than you would have individually. If you have the same exact people getting married, then they're both going to not pick up laundry from the floor.
Right. And we should probably talk about like really big weaknesses. Like if there's a big moral issue in someone, that's not really what we're talking about here, right? If there's some kind of moral issue or a weakness that is a huge problem, you should get help with that. You should definitely talk about that. You shouldn't just let it go, and you can get outside professional help too.
Yeah, we're not talking about character issues, and some of that comes into point 3 when we get to it. But yeah, totally. These are just more things that are, you're not naturally strong at, or they don't come to you, just out of your normal state of thinking. It's just a weakness.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to say about that is we actually talked to our kids about this recently. We did a study with them on the book of Proverbs, and we had them write down character traits that they found in the book of Proverbs, either on the negative side, things they did not want in a future spouse, or on the positive side, things they did want in a future spouse. And then at the end of all of that, we were like, okay, so now when you are looking for a future spouse, do you need to find someone who has none of the negative and like 100% of the positive? And even them, at their age could see like, no, like we're not looking for someone that's perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was no eye rolling and no groaning during that entire study, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. They loved every minute of that conversation.
They're like, really, Mom?
As normal teenagers would. All right. So what about number 2?
Number 2 is shared values. And I really like this one because I guess it kind of follows well with what we just talked about in strengths and weaknesses, because when we got married, we realized it. And then in the years following, we realized it more, that we had very different things about us. You had different personality, different motivations than I did. And, if you think about that, you might think that because we're so different in those ways that it would drive us apart. But actually, what we do have in common is our shared values. And so that's the helpful thing. Number 2 is shared values. And when I think of shared values, I think of agreement on things that really matter. And so when it comes to our faith, when it comes to our family, when it comes to those things that really matter in life, we share those values. And then we can come together in unity when we're trying to make decisions in life, even though we have, different personalities or different motivations, because we can go back to those shared values.
Yeah, really helps to set vision and direction for our family and a common place that we're going together. It also helps whenever, we're in one of our weaker moments and maybe we're acting in a way that's not congruent with our shared values, or not going in the direction that we want to go. This is something that we've already agreed on. It's something that we already have in common. And so Melisha can confront me and say, Ryan, this, what are you doing? This isn't what we do, or this isn't where we're going. And I agree with that, because this is not what we signed up for. That's not who we are.
Yeah. And it really plays into parenting as well. This isn't an episode on parenting, but if you have children, if your kids can see that you are united and your shared values, it really makes for a more peaceful and stable home. So what are some of our shared values, would you say?
Well, you've already mentioned our faith, so that's kind of bedrock for sure. So that's something that we have in common. We're both in line on, and something that we're teaching our kids. So I would say that's definitely the most important. So another one would be just how we prioritize our time and careers. So, our family is the most important thing for us. We only have our kids for a little bit of time before they grow up and are out of our house. And so in this season of life, although we're busy and we're trying to do different things with our careers that are important to us, we realize as well that we don't want to put all of our time into places that don't feed back into our family. So that's something that is also kind of other than our faith, the bedrock of our shared values.
Yeah, I think it really played into things like deciding whether or not to homeschool, which we've done for the last 12 years now. But I've seen you turn down jobs or not pursue job openings that were going to be a big drain on the family.
Yeah, definitely. Don't want to travel like 80% of my day
Right.
or time and not have time for you all.
Yeah. So shared values is number 2. And then number 3 is humility.
What about humility? So humility, how it's kind of looked in our home is the willingness and ability to apologize quickly. So that if I can like name one thing that really is like humility in action is just apologizing when you are in the wrong, and also forgiving easily, not holding a grudge. And that's, if you can do that well, that's like 90% of marriage, I think.
Oh my gosh, that's so true, because I struggled with this at the beginning of our marriage and it caused some friction between us. I think we went through a lot of heartache, and maybe it even wasn't us going through heartache. It was me going through my own inner turmoil heartache because I didn't know how to forgive easily. I didn't know how to apologize quickly. And so those were things I had to learn. So anybody who's listening to this thinking, I'm not good at that, just know that you can learn it. Well, one thing we talk about with humility with our kids and with each other is that humility is the right understanding of who you are. So it's not thinking of yourself too highly. It's not thinking of yourself too lowly. It's having a right understanding of yourself. And so that actually helped me because I was probably on the more lowly end of thinking, I just need to tough it out. It's my problem to deal with. It's all my fault, different things like that. And so that negative self-talk was a big part of not allowing me to let go of things that I needed to let go of and forgive and not hold a grudge.
One other aspect of humility is the willingness to be open and learn and change. So another way that I've heard this described is that you're teachable, or, we do a lot of sports around here, so you're coachable, right?
Yeah.
You're able to take input from other people, to consider it, to learn, and to understand how you need to change based on that input.
Yeah, and that can be hard to address as a married couple sometimes if you don't do it at the right time. If you're trying to coach or give instructions to someone who is really upset in the moment and not ready to receive what you have to say. And so that goes two ways. Like, that person needs to be willing to receive even when they're feeling emotionally driven in that moment. And then the other person needs to have some wisdom to be like, do I need to give them a few minutes and we can talk about this later? I don't have to say everything that's on my mind right this second.
Yeah. That makes me think of we shared this in another podcast actually, but there was a strategy that I heard from another person at one point, and we had a hard time at one point talking about difficult things, or you weren't always ready in the moment to talk about those things, and so I actually gave you like a card. I'm not a crafty person, but this is like one of the only and most crafty things that I've ever done. Is I made a card, I cut out like letters and put some coloring behind it. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it said "Let's talk," and I even laminated it. So, but it was like
still have it.
It was the side of like a postcard, and I told you to put it in someplace that I would find it.
Yeah.
Throughout the house, like my underwear drawer or someplace that I would definitely find it. And whenever I saw this thing show up, I would mentally prepare myself and make sure that we had time set aside to talk about whatever it is that was on your heart.
Yeah, and that helped me when I was not good at being vulnerable, to know that I had a safe place where I could be vulnerable.
Right.
It sounds like in this topic of humility, we're talking about conflict like a lot.
Well, that's what's most important, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to be awesome at humility when things are going well.
Yeah, exactly. So we have focus on strengths, not weaknesses, shared values, and humility. And then number 4 is friendship, which has been a huge blessing for us. I think we have come, like, we're almost at our 20-year anniversary, and I can definitely say that you're my best friend.
Yeah, you too, babe.
But that didn't come by accident or luck.
Right.
We didn't just get lucky and, have a great friendship.
Yeah, well, I think we started out well. We enjoyed each other, when we started dating, and we liked hanging out, so that was a good start. But you got to keep building on that because, life gets busy, and, if you start having kids, then it gets really busy, and
Right.
they become a priority and they have activities and things like that. You just run out of time and you run out of energy if you're not intentional about prioritizing the friendship that you made and keeping that alive.
Yeah. You talking about the beginning of our relationship up to the point of marriage. I saw someone else talk about that the other day, and they were making the point that, you put a lot of effort and intentionality into dating someone, right? And into like maybe your engagement season and all those things. And then when you get married, it's like, oh, I crossed the finish line, relax, I did it,
Right.
But actually, that's not what we really should do. That's the starting line. The marriage is the starting line of that relationship. It's the starting line of pursuing each other.
Yeah. And honestly, it's the starting line of something that can become a much deeper friendship because, of course you can and should become deep friends before you get married. But after you get married, then that's like a whole new level of opportunity for intimacy and getting to know the person and their best and worst moments. And
yeah,
that's when real friendship comes through.
So how have we made friendship a priority in our relationship?
Well, it has looked different in different seasons of life, but we have always tried to prioritize time with each other without kids or anyone else. Like we still try to date, even throughout the 20 years that we've been together.
Yeah, when our kids were little, and now that they're a little bit older, it's easier to get away. But even when they were smaller, we still got babysitters, asked family to help, and we got away together. Like sometimes we would be a weekend. We did some trips that were longer. We've done date nights pretty consistently. But yeah, just like making that a priority in your budget, making that a priority in your calendar, in your work schedule, all the things.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be even like a long period of time. But if you're consistently doing it, I think it pays dividends.
Yeah. And I think this is a big struggle for married couples that do have kids because it's easy to get really focused on your kids and all their activities and their school and all the things that you lose track of why you got married in the first place. And you lose track of liking each other. You're in this committed like love relationship, but do you still like each other?
Right. Yeah, because if you grow apart and you don't end up liking each other, then, all the kids leave the house. And if they were the center of the marriage, center of the house, then like, who are you anymore? Like now I got to get to know you all over again. That might be hard. We also had, and again, this is not a family focused episode. It's about marriage, but the best thing that you can do for your family is to have a marriage-centered marriage versus a child-centered marriage.
I agree. This is one of the things that has been helpful in our marriage as far as making us feel like marriage is fun and a blessing, other than something we just have to like endure and like, a task to be done almost. So our next one is respect. Can you kind of describe what we were thinking when we picked that?
I just wanted to sing the Aretha Franklin song.
Go for it.
I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, so respect to me means honoring and esteeming the other person. So we're going to honor and esteem the other person. We're going to treat them with honor and respect, and we're going to approach our relationship from that perspective.
I have to say I didn't really understand the importance of this or the depth of this or really even how to do this well when we first got married.
Yeah, I don't think it's really taught or thought about a lot in our culture for sure. And especially as you see this in TV shows or movies, this is not really depicted a lot in marriage, is it?
Definitely not.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of the opposite. There's a lot of disrespect being thrown around in those types of depictions of marriage, and so it's just not a good atmosphere for this to happen. But it is definitely important.
Yeah, one thing you might do that would be helpful is to think about all of the marriage relationships that you know of in your life and think of who does this well. Like, who can we look up to in this area? Like, what married couple do we know that really respects each other well? And kind of just think about what they do and how they do that.
So part of respect in my mind is definitely how you speak to each other and how you speak about each other.
Yeah. So you're talking about what we do inside the home, but also what we do outside the home.
Yeah, that's right. So speaking to each other as if, we are adults and we're real people. with real feelings, but also just understanding that your words, especially your spouse's words, can hurt. When they say things that will belittle you or put you down, that hurts worse than, anyone else, because you've let that person in deeper. So being really careful with the words and the tone in which we speak to each other is one way to respect your spouse. And then when you're outside of the home, speaking about your spouse, even if it's, to a friend and you're, maybe needing to vent or get some feedback, you're just being very careful to honor that person in the company of other people.
Yeah. So can you kind of explain the difference between, if you're out with friends and they're just like bashing their spouse, right? What's the difference between that, you're talking about your spouse outside of the home, and like talking about your spouse, in a way that like, I have this issue, I need to get help?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you're talking and you're trying to get some perspective from another person about, whatever you're going through, either a disagreement or whatever with your spouse, you need to choose a wise person to actually talk to about that. So if you're talking to, your buddy who's on like his 10th marriage and is just trashing his wives all the time, he's probably not the right person to confide to. He's probably not the right person to get feedback from, because it's not going to be probably productive. I don't know this person, I'm just making this up. But so if it's a person that is a safe person, a trusted person, then it's okay, I think, to be vulnerable. And I think even like you and I, we've got friends that we trust. And if you said, hey, I went and talked to so-and-so about this thing that we're saying, I wouldn't be upset. It's because I know and love and respect that person as well. So I think we have those people in our lives. So that's what I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And if you do find yourself in a situation where, everybody's bashing their spouse, you can choose not to participate, or you can change the subject, but it's just not a healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
It puts you in a bad mindset. And you go home and you're like, my spouse is horrible.
Right.
Another thing that's not talked about a lot with respect is that it's unconditional. So respect is not something that our spouse has to earn or is based on how, well they're doing that day and how nice they're being to me. It's something that we give regardless of the circumstances.
Right. So just how unconditional love is a really popular concept in our culture and in marriage. And I think everyone would agree that marriage should have unconditional love. Not everyone would probably agree or even, know what you're talking about when you say you should also have unconditional respect.
Right.
But it's the same thing, right?
It is. And we both need it. Like there's a book called Love and Respect that's really great. We can link that one in the show notes as well. And it talks about how husbands really need respect and they feed off of that, and wives really need love and we feed off of that. But really, we both need respect and we both need love. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And finally, like on this respect topic, I think it's always good to assume the best about the other person. So, when they're doing something that may be annoying to you or feels disrespectful to you, assume the best. Assume that they're not doing that on purpose. Assume that they're not doing that
with a bad intention.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, Daily Wellness listeners. Have you ever wished for specific guided help with your health journey? Maybe you need someone to teach you about menu planning or how to get your whole family on board with healthy eating. Maybe you need recommendations for non-toxic cleaning and personal care products so that you can finally make the switch. Now, you and I can chat one-on-one about whatever health topic you'd like. For more details and to schedule, go to dailywellnesscommunity.com/coaching. Now back to the episode.
So number 6 on our list is health.
Yeah. So you guys know, this is the Health and Wellness podcast, and this is really the connecting point between marriage and health. Like, we talk about having a healthy marriage in the fact of like having a healthy relationship, but it also just impacts our actual health, like our physical, mental well-being, right? And if you think about it, I kind of explained this earlier, but if you're not doing well in your marriage, it's going to put these stressors on your life that impact your health in a lot of ways. Maybe you start not sleeping well. Maybe you start having anxiety or depression. Maybe that stress causes your blood pressure, to increase, or, you just have all these inflammatory things going on in your body that literally make you unhealthy. And it could be stemming back from unhealthy relationships, as in your marriage.
Yeah. And not to mention just all those symptoms just from the stress itself, but then also like what would you do to cope with that? So you might have a drink or two every day or night to kind of take the edge off your nerves, or you may pick up a negative eating habit to cope with that. So that would spiral into a lot of other things, I would think.
That's true. And on the other hand, if you are caring well for your marriage and you're investing into it and you're doing all you can to make it healthy and your spouse is doing the same, right, then the opposite's going to happen, right? Your physical health can benefit from that. You actually increase your physical health when you increase joy and peace and things like that in your life.
Yeah, 100%. What's the happy hormones or the love hormones?
Yeah, definitely impacts our hormones. I mean, stress is a hormone as well, right?
Yeah.
So this is a huge thing related to our hormones for sure. All the serotonin and the endorphins and all those things, which kind of ties into the last thing we'll talk about. But yeah, definitely impacts our hormone health. If we're caring for ourselves, then we're also caring for our spouse. Because if you think about the long-term results of that, then you're going to be around for your spouse, right? You're going to be able to have those lifelong memories that you've always dreamed of having because you are increasing your longevity.
Yeah. And if you want to have a good marriage, you want to have a long marriage, then obviously health is a key to that, right? Because we want to stick around for each other.
Yeah. And also, if you think about any time that something is not going well in your life, and that just like almost consumes you, like all I can think about is how bad my marriage is right now. And then you can't serve other people well. You can't serve your children well. You're not in a good mood. You're probably not your best at work, all those things.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to be insensitive when I say this, because there's a lot of really great marriages that someone falls ill or they get a serious issue, and that other spouse, steps up in a really heroic and meaningful way and cares for them and is, really doing their job, the whole sickness or health. They're really sticking with them in sickness and walking through them in a really meaningful way. But that's not the ideal, right? We would rather have a healthy spouse. We would rather have someone that we can enjoy and not have to, walk with them in those difficult times of sickness.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And if it does happen, because we can't always prevent it, if it does happen, we're definitely going to be there for each other. But I would rather, have a lifelong healthy marriage with you.
Right. And that's the thing. I think all of the couples who are in that place where a spouse is struggling with their health, they would say, avoid it if you can. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about do all that you can to be a good steward of your health. And then if things happen, you deal with it and you do the best you can. But you do the best you can on the front end to avoid it.
Yep, that's good.
Number 7 is finances. And this is something we wanted to talk about because it's something that tears a lot of marriages apart.
Yeah, it's one of the top cited reasons for divorce in this country is financial reasons. And so it's obviously something that if you're focusing on a healthy marriage that you want to address, you want to talk about. And this has definitely been a topic in our marriage as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about it, though, it's always pleasant and we agree on everything and nobody's feelings are ever hurt.
Yeah, definitely this year there were no tears shed over disagreements about how we should spend our money. So just kidding.
Yeah, I think we've had to grow in this for several reasons. One is because, when we got married, we were very poor. So there wasn't a lot to decide on. And then, your different seasons of life, how are we spending money on kids? How are we spending money on our home? How are we investing for the future? There becomes new things to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like a lot of people, when you have more ideas of what do you do with your money than money itself, then you have to come kind of back to, again, your shared values, your shared priorities on how you spend the money and how you give the money and where we put it.
What are your thoughts on joint finances? So if, a couple gets married, they have separate financial accounts and all of that. Like, what do you think is a healthy way to approach that?
Yeah. This is it's not really complicated, but it definitely could be sensitive. I personally just don't know how we would be able to do separate finances. Your account, my account, and then we have like maybe a joint account, and somehow we decide who pays for what and when. That just seems like a lot of heartache. to me to figure that one out and kind of jump through all those hoops. I know there's some people that do it, and maybe some people that do it well, but if we're supposed to be a team and we're supposed to be, just kind of two becoming one, I think finances are a huge part of that.
Yeah. I would say if you are going to keep separate accounts, there needs to still be complete transparency of what is in those accounts, what's going in, what's going out. We're not trying to hide anything.
Yeah. And we haven't experienced this, but I could see if one spouse was being they just have these terrible financial habits and we're refusing to change or get help or
stay on a budget
or anything. It might be helpful to have separate accounts. And so that might be a good reason in a very extreme circumstance. But normally, for kind of two reasonable, financially healthy minded people, it just makes a lot of sense to have shared, transparent finances with each other.
I think it's helped our communication as well, having a joint financial account, because we know what we're spending. You see what I spend, I see what you spend, and we have to talk about that. What was this?
Yeah, it's even easier now because the credit card app will just give me a push notification.
Yeah.
Anytime something.
I'll be out shopping, I'm thinking I should tell Ryan to maybe turn off his notifications for a while.
Yep, and I already see it. I already saw what happened. So it's like, what's that?
Yeah, so it does encourage you to communicate.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the best things that we've ever done is get to a budget together, like a monthly budget that we plan our money ahead of time. We agree what we're going to spend and when we're going to spend it. And that every month we kind of review how we did and we plan for the next month. So there was a season where we were doing that really intensely because we had a very specific financial goal that we were trying to get to. And I think that season, and it was 3 years, that season ingrained a lot of really good habits in how we handle money. Yeah. And there's some really funny stories from that season we probably won't need to go into, but it was really good for us.
Yeah, we were budgeting to the dollar, to the degree where if I wanted to go to Starbucks and get a drink, I'd been like, do we have money in this? Can I get a Starbucks drink? Can I spend $5? Because
it wasn't in the budget.
We were that intense on our goals.
Yeah, and we did it.
Yeah, we did it. And I think, it brought us closer together too. And kind of like you said, having those shared values. I had to have you bring me back sometimes. We'd be in the midst of it, in the grind of, being really intense with our budget and everything. And I'd be like, why are we doing this? And I need you to cast vision to me again.
Yep.
Why do you think this is a major reason for divorce?
That's a great question. I think money is just an indicator of where your priorities are and where your heart is. It's a tangible, transactional accounting version of what you value. And if you're not on the same page, if you don't value the same things, if you don't see life and spending of finances the same way, then it can really cause conflict, because in a lot of circumstances it's a scarce resource for couples, or it's definitely a limited resource for most people.
Right.
And so spending our limited resources together is going to be a very important thing to talk about and to agree on.
Yeah. I can just think of situations where I know of people who have just been really hurt by their spouse's financial decisions. Either they've been hiding things or not willing to be transparent, or one of the people in the relationship are selfish, honestly, and they're not willing to compromise with their goals and what they want to do with their money, and they have to have it their way. And so I think that comes back to humility.
Well, yeah, a lot of these things are interdependent, right? Because part of the way I spend our money shows how I respect you.
Right. True.
So we saved the best one for last.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
Salt and pepper. Shout out to you. All right. So sex is important, isn't it?
It has been for us, for sure.
Definitely. And I wanted to speak about this from our perspective of a man, because obviously that's what I am. And I think we get a lot of times a bad rap for just always thinking about sex or, all that type of stereotype. But for me, I think for a lot of men, sexual intimacy with our wives is our expression of, it's the deepest experience and expression of love and intimacy. So with women, I've heard, you can validate this if it's true or not, but, talking, communication, kind of heart to heart, communication is the way that you receive love from me the most. Not that you don't enjoy sexual intimacy with me, but for men, that really is like one of the deepest ways that I can connect with you. And so to feel close to you, that kind of goes hand in hand with that. So if I want to feel close to you, if I want to have intimacy with you, if I want to feel connected to you, and we're not able to have sex, then that's going to feel difficult. I'm going to feel disconnected from you.
Yeah. And I don't know, for all women, I don't know if I can speak for all of us, but I think the same for me, at least to some degree. I definitely notice that when we are regularly having sex, then it impacts the rest of our marriage in a positive way. We are nicer to each other. We are more sensitive of each other's needs throughout the day. We're more affectionate. So it just has like a trickle-down effect.
I would also say from my perspective, it's also been a thing of comfort for me. So when I'm going through a difficult time, either at work or in life, or, there's been situations outside of like our immediate family, but like family related that have been hard, then that is a place of comfort, a source of comfort for me. And also, quite honestly, like just stress relief. Like, for a man, like physically, I need a physical release at regular intervals.
Yeah, which kind of leads into the health benefits of sex. So it's not just a thing that is emotional. It's actually a thing that is physical.
Right.
Like there are very real physical health benefits. There's a reason that God designed us to be sexual people, right? So, I mean, when men and women are having sex regularly inside a marriage relationship, it helps with healthy levels of testosterone and estrogen. It helps with, and it also helps with that release of oxytocin, which is the love hormone,
right,
which also like plays into our emotions. So our bodies are very connected. Our emotions are very connected to our physical bodies. So all of that is interconnected for sure. But there are like real, like scientific health benefits of sex that shouldn't be ignored.
So some things that have gotten in the way of our sexual health. Right.
Energy. I'm so tired. Like, I'm not just making it up.
I'm exhausted. Just want to watch a show and go to bed.
Yeah, like mentally tired, physically tired, emotionally tired. All of those things drain you to where you're at the end of the day when most couples would have sex and you're like, I'm so tired.
Yeah. Like, I'll just go lay down, I'll wait for you, and then you're asleep. Like,
right.
Yeah. And that's not happening.
So we really need to be intentional how we think about sex, like throughout the day, throughout the week. Like we need to be making decisions in our lives that allows us to have a healthy sex life.
Yeah. One thing that I've heard and has been true for us is that, men are microwaves, women are crock pots. So, often when I know that I want to be intimate with you, I'll like let you know in the morning, and I'm not like doing that weird way. I'm just
right.
Hey, honey.
Yeah. Yes, you do. You do that.
Just so that she knows that I'm definitely thinking about that throughout the day, and so I want her to as well, so that we can both prepare ourselves, time wise, kid management wise, energy wise, to be in a place where we can be intimate.
Yeah. And there are real struggles that people have with this as far as like just the physical mechanics aspect of it. Maybe they're not enjoying it or whatnot. And I would just encourage you to get help if you feel like that's you, because this could be such a game changer in your marriage. And so if you think about your sex life with your spouse, like scale of 1 to 10, if you're like less than an 8, I would say that's a red flag.
Yeah.
If you're like less than an 8,
Yeah, long term.
Yeah.
If it's been like less than an 8 and it's just not at a place you want it to be, and that's like a long term thing. Of course, we're going to have like down weeks or down days or whatever where just life gets in the way or you're just not physically feeling well. But if it's consistently like that, then it's definitely going to be hurting your marriage.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
So those are our 8 keys of a healthy marriage. Focus on strengths, share values, have humility, be friends, be respectful, care for your health, financial health, and sex.
Yeah. I hope you guys got some benefit out of this. We're not saying that all of these have to be a 10 all of the time. We're just saying that over the last 20 years, these are like common things and that we've been intentional about in our marriage that we feel like has brought us to a place where we can say that we have a healthy marriage. And that's where we want you guys to be.
Yeah. And if you've got feedback, you've got some suggestions of other areas that we may have missed, we're always willing to learn. So please share with us.
Yeah, I'm also curious to hear what your favorite topic was. Like out of these 8 helpful things, what was your favorite? So reach out to us and let us know.
Thanks for listening to today's episode on the Daily Wellness Podcast. We hope that you found it helpful for your own wellness journey. And if so, we'd love for you to leave a review. Then come back and listen for review shoutouts on upcoming episodes. For more information, check out the show notes and connect with us on our website, dailywellnesscommunity.com.